today is starting conceptually with the crossfade presentation and then going down into specific models of things that are happening with either social change or activism, and now some amazing programs and initiatives that are happening out west. It's a big Western kind of flavor to this morning. So it is my honor to turn the floor over to Bryce Merrill from the Western States Arts Federation. Thanks.
We've got a couple of videos that we're going to be showing. So we're going to start with our introductions, and then we'll get to a couple of videos. So my name is Bryce Merrill. I'm with West Staff. I'm the moderator of the panel, but I'll also be participating in it. And my organization is a regional nonprofit arts organization. We work with 13 state arts agencies in the West, but we also work nationally on a number of research, cultural policy, and technology projects. Also today I'm representing our Independent Music on Tour, or IM Tour program, which is a grant program to sustain independent music touring in the West. Rebecca?
My name is Rebecca Gates. I live in Portland, Oregon. I'm a musician. I also work in arts production and curating and do sound art thinking. I put out my first record 20 years ago and 2 days, 20 years and 2 days ago in 1993, and I put out my last record last June.
My name is Storm Gloor. I'm a music business professor at the University of Colorado, Denver, and I am also working on the Denver Music Task Force with the gentleman to my right, and on the IM Tour program as well.
I always feel compelled to say this, that is his real name, not his wrestling name, although it'd be a great wrestling name.
Peace. I go by DJ Cavum Motivation. Cavum stands for Communicating Awareness, Victoriously Educating the Masses. I'm a hip-hop artist, MC, producer, b-boy, organic gardener, father of 3, and a midwife. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about that.
Last night in a cab in the middle of DC, he became the first telecommuting midwife. He was on the phone with someone talking them through labor. Seriously, it was amazing.
Yeah.
That's how we do it out west. How we roll.
And I'm Dani Grant, and I own and run a venue called Mishawaka Amphitheatre in northern Colorado. And I also founded a nonprofit called SpokesBUZZ Fort Collins, which is an economic development generator for northern Colorado and the Front Range.
So while we're kind of getting some technology situated here, I thought I'd do a little bit of framing. We're going to do sort of 5 minutes of each of our panelists talking about what they do, how they do, and why they do it. And to frame that conversation, I think there are 3 points to make. First, when it comes to this notion of what do we mean by independent, I think we prefer, I'll call it sort of conceptual flexibility rather than conceptual clarity. We are emphasizing in this panel the kind of the organizational side of the independent music community, and perhaps the sort of the business side of the independent music community. But we much prefer not to get pinned down to one definition. So if you're looking for that from us today, you'll be disappointed, I think. And then when it comes to sort of issues of genre around independent music, we certainly want that as broad as possible. One of my, I don't know, it might be my personal sort of soapboxes is to get the people I work with, particularly those in public art agencies, not to think about independent music as, you know, 20-year-old white kids playing rock in their garage. That's great too, but it's really, we mean a number of diversity issues in terms of genre and the people that are representing this particular music sector. The second point, I think the term nonprofit is in the title of the presentation, but we really want to emphasize that mission-driven component, and that all of the work that we're representing today is guided by something more than music. So, you know, the work I think is not necessarily going to represent 501c3s, but really organizations working in the independent music sector that are driven by particular missions. And finally, yes, we're representing the West, but not sort of regionalism for regionalism's sake. The West is and I should say the Rocky Mountain West and the Pacific Northwest are where we're representing today. They're unique geographies. They are unique cultural areas with unique challenges, and the work that we do has to be responsive to those particular things. So place will be important for what we're talking about today, but not just like, hey, we're from the West and the West is great.
I think it's the West is best. No.
I know, that's why you're the real musician up here. So that's it for the framing, and how are we doing on the...
Okay, we've got her video.
Great. So maybe we'll start with Dani?
You want me to start?
Sure.
Well, I think to kick it off, SpokesBUZZ is a nonprofit. It's been a 501c3 for 3 years. We've been working on the project for about 4 years, and its mission is to amplify the local music scenes that we are involved with, to develop emerging artists, to create more of an opportunity for them to learn how to be a small business, to promote our regions as cultural destinations, and ultimately it's about growing the economies with cultural attractions. It's become a lot of, for me, it's an opportunity right now with the music industry as it is. It's an exciting time. There's a way to make incredible change right now because the industry is going through so much. And I believe that we are going to make a lot of change if we can involve community with for-profits, with nonprofits, in order to help assist our local industry. And I think the local bands have a tremendous gap at this point between that emerging phase and then when they can be ready for management and agent representation. And we really try and focus on that gap where they are trying to figure out how to grow in this market. And they spend a ton of time learning their instruments, being creatives, and then when it comes time to go out on the road, they have no business skills per se, and it's difficult to translate. And my dad was a businessman and my mom was an artist, so I spent my whole life translating between them. And so I think I have a skill set for that, and so I use that all the time. And so that is what SpokesBUZZ is trying to do, and I come from an entrepreneurial background, and arts and culture is an incredible economic generator for our cities, and the arts that we have are an asset to them. And I think describing to our cities and describing to the people who are working on funding how to utilize that to create an X factor for the cities that we live in is really important. And I think some cities get it more than others. And through the programs that we run, which we focus on 3 main programs. One is our incubator, which takes in emerging artists who go through a very rigorous application process to become a part of SpokesBUZZ, the class of 2013. That incubator gives them, monthly training, access to people in the industry, much like a small business incubator would. Our next major program is a South by Southwest showcase, which focuses on trying to bring attention and attraction to Fort Collins, Denver, and the Front Range as a music community. So we spend a lot of time educating people at South by Southwest about what we have to offer. And then Band Swap, which is our signature program, is a multi-city exchange of artists. And it's a 4-week program where we send bands out to 8 different cities, Portland being one of them. All of those cities are somewhat like-minded and maintain the same kind of philosophies that we do, and they're chosen because of that. Secondary music markets who want to be recognized for being a cultural destination, they really want to encourage their artists to develop and grow. And we're building a network between those cities so that we can break down the touring models. It's been very successful. We're in our 2nd year. And understand that this organization operates on a budget, an annual budget of about $150,000 a year. So it's very grassroots. A lot of people do a lot of in-kind work. Our design and our marketing and our writing is where we really get attraction, and our publicity and our marketing, we focus a lot on national publicity. And I want to play a little short info video on Band Swap. The soundtrack to this is a local Fort Collins band, if we can get it up. Doo-doo. I'm a PC girl, so when I saw this Mac up here, I almost freaked out. I'm like, what? Here it is.
In today's rapidly changing music industry, the question becomes, how do we amplify our music scene, develop our musicians, promote our culture, and grow our economy? Band swap. It's changing the music industry by rewiring the connectivity of all those involved and leveling the playing field. It starts with visionaries investing in opportunities, venues acting as anchors, communities championing the cause, and messengers sharing the story. Band Swap is a unique multi-city initiative that orchestrates reciprocity, bringing bands to perform for new fans during a 3-week exchange program, amplifying the network of like-minded music markets with a common philosophy. Supporting the music scene makes sense, giving independence through interdependence. By eliminating obstacles for musicians and extending credibility through association, BandSwap serves individual artists as well as communities. It deconstructs the limiting linear touring model and makes resources and connections available to everyone involved. BandSwap demonstrates the power of shared success through radical collaboration, all with a simple concept that's recreatable in many markets. Think globally, rock locally.
So that's what it's about, and for me, it's really about getting. Oh gosh, is this on pause now? It's about gaining networks. It's about getting buy-in from venues in different cities, getting organizations that are like SpokesBUZZ to get behind it and help promote, so that when the bands from our regions call up a venue like the Blue Moon Saloon in Lafayette and say, hey, we're touring through, we were a part of Band Swap last year, we played in Portland, can you put us on the bill and can you put us with a local act so that we can actually have some people show up? And so we're generating this buy-in from different cities across the country that they will support that and they'll help promote it. And so I think over time we'll see more of this happening. There's a study out of the Brookings Institute called the Metropolitan Revolution. It really focuses more on manufacturing and more, streamlined businesses using communities and for-profits and cities to promote their for-profit businesses. But I think it works for the arts and culture movement too. And I think as we move forward, we're going to see that this is a way that we can really bridge that gap for our local artists. So I'm excited about the progress we've made, and I'm excited to see other people in other cities maybe trying to do this more locally. Even, a Summit County, a triangle in a certain area that we can start partnering with venues and start bringing up our local scenes to make them more successful. So,
Great.
Yeah,
Thanks.
that's about it.
Great. Rebecca, can you go next?
Sure, I'll take a stab at it. I have more a series of sort of questions and musings and in a point of gathering answers, but my background is not only in playing music and touring internationally and doing the classic indie rock road, but what's something that's really compelling for me is to think about how sound defines geography and spaces, whether it's just the hearth of a campfire or the geography of constellation of touring musicians. And to me, this offers a really interesting way to think about problems that we face and just the challenges of working in the arts in America today. So I am what I call chief wrangler of a collective of musicians based in Portland, Oregon. There's some that are national, some that are international. We are functioning on sort of a private laboratory model at this point, but working under the rubric of the Agency League of Musicians. And one of the things that we're working towards is a musician-defined, musician-driven initiatives, working towards restorative and engaged practice and affecting civic engagement, being involved in our communities in a way that helps us create the world that we want to live in. I know it's a really broad brush stroke, but at the same time, it's been really interesting as I've been investigating this space, and other musicians as well, just how bereft the vocabulary is. So what we're trying to do is offer a space for working musicians to share resources and information, develop specific strategies to engage in our communities, respond to challenges of not just our business and the marketing and promotion side of things, but also our practice. And to think in terms of how you build in healing, how you build in long-term, how you build in shifts in business, families, personal lives, etc. How do we develop tools that are easily usable, embeddable, and thus sustainable? And it's currently framed as an artist collaboration, which is working for us. There's a group of us working on it where all levels of success in terms of history and economics, mostly rock and roll, independent background, but also a lot of different genres. Portland is really interesting in that there's a sort of overarching mode of working that you think about when people associate with Portland, but there's a lot of super interesting stuff going on. But we all really believe in the power of music. We believe in the organizing principle of this thing that we care very deeply about. We believe in human rights, and we just are really interested in making that a place that we're working from. I'll try to not bring in my personal narrative too much, but I think in this context, really quickly to rush through it, it helps a little bit. Because it shows where some of the questions and the things that we're investigating sort of originated from. I don't have a team. I've never had a manager. I write, arrange, play, produce all my records. I book my own shows. I release or co-release my own records. I'm asked to figure out how to make a hit when billions of dollars, staffs of thousands, and huge companies have never been able to crack that code. Point is, I have to define, so right now I'm in a situation where in terms of my career and the business side of it, I have to define and attempt to answer these crazy questions myself, which is incredibly challenging, and a lot of the conversation at this summit happens, or looks at that area. But one of the things that I find really empowering is that it means that I have the freedom to explore and work in a certain way. And the positive moment that we have right here is that, I work on a lot of issues with net neutrality, with the future of music and other organizations. There's a lot of work to be done to make sure that the space remains open in terms of business and communication, but we do still have that openness. So looking at my experience and knowing it's common, knowing it's not often addressed in terms of the focus for support, because a lot of the structures go to emerging artists, artists in crisis, or if someone's looking for help with a social justice issue, frequently that's framed in terms of a larger profile or reach. So basically I'm looking at, and there's a lot of us in Portland, a slice of artists who are working musicians and are really looking at being challenged in terms of the middle class. So how can we start engaging in a conversation in an effective way around our business? These are the questions we're asking. Some other questions we're looking at is how can we develop tools for support and for engagement? How can we highlight really effective tools that exist in other places? And when I mean that, there's amazing nonprofit organizations that I'm learning about, and I'm able to translate that into my city. There's stuff that we're doing that needs to go out. How to commission our own tools? How do we own our own tools? How do we position ourselves as prime movers in our business and in our communities and not be sort of in a victimized or reactive or binary conversation? Like, how can we acknowledge the complexity of the urban landscape and the complexity of the current cultural scene and be involved in that in a dynamic way? How can we even do things like choose which spectrum of licensing and ownership we want to work in and acknowledge that will shift? So it's a lot of thinking about how we can break apart these sort of dominant narratives. One of the things that we're dealing with is major land grabs in technology and information, major land grabs in big data, and in terms of marketplace for the arts, attempts to try to monetize large parts of our practice, granular aspects of our practice. And we also engage a lot as working musicians, with entities that are socially, politically progressive, but economically are trying to do anything they can to prevent any challenge to their economic superiority. So there's so many questions that are coming up for us if you're sort of paying attention. And so what we're trying to do is, how can we provide support for ourselves, for each other to work in areas that we care about? How can we network so we make that work stronger? And also, the thing that's interesting for us is that you know, a lot of musicians aren't concerned with business. They're not concerned with cities, and we're not saying that anyone has to be. There's a definite school of thought we've run into where people are, we don't understand why you're trying to do this stuff. You should just be playing. You guys are great. I love you. You know, I got dressed to you in high school. Don't worry about this stuff. You're golden. And it's just sort of like, you know, actually what we really need to do is we need to bring our intelligence and we need to bring our skill set into a lot of the questions that are happening culturally. It's not only interesting for us, it's something that Jill touched on, like part of her, and I'm almost done, but part of her practice in expanding away from music is just how do you keep it interesting? And what we're realizing is that there's a lot of us who are working on elections, legislative issues, cultural policy issues, collaborative design, urban planning, sustainability, and it's really lovely. And Portland specifically is a really great place to look at that. So a lot of what we're looking at is in progress. It's completely framed within the context of Northwest punk and Northwest rock and roll, and it's completely framed in the context of Pacific Northwest sustainability language. So that's sort of where we're at, and ultimately we just describe ourselves as a node and a point of engagement, both in and out. And as we've sort of planted the flag, it's been really great to see what's starting to happen in Portland. So.
When I was talking to the panelists beforehand, I emphasized that I really want them to talk not just about the why of what they do, but the how, because I think you'll see as a theme is we've got these different missions that we're working towards, but we're also trying to find sustainable models, either from a revenue perspective or whatnot, to do that very work. And I think that's one of our challenges. It's not just here's our mission, here's what we do, here's our programming, but how do we have staff that get paid? You know, how do we sustain this financially? You know, so that's a deep concern of ours as well. You ready, DJ? Yeah. Cool.
Peace. What's happening? Y'all feel like? Everybody just stand up real quick. Just stand up. And put your hands in the air like this. All right, stretch. Stretch. All right, cool. Sit down. Sometimes that's how I feel. Outside of all this other stuff, because I'm a b-boy, so I also teach yoga to young children. Add that on. So my breakdance crew is called Lords of Finesse. I've been breakdancing since I was 5 years old. I started off as playing percussion, a conguero, and keeping it very orthodox Angola capoeira style. That's kind of how I grew up vegan, vegetarian, and my mother raised me pretty well on that orthodox, native tongues, hip hop. So check it out. Talk to you a little bit more about what I do. I'm a lot of things actually. Check it out though, but I do a lot of gang intervention in Denver, Colorado. Not just in Denver, but in Oakland and Vallejo. I'm an OG. I'm an organic gardener. And I teach young people how to grow food, how to eat food, how to prepare the food, or we talk about how food is medicine. We make songs about it. I have a full album, which is a curriculum that I teach in schools. The album, it's available to educators nationwide, worldwide. It's called The Produce Section, The Harvest. It is a, intergenerational dialogue on holistic health awareness. When I was in high school, I started a festival called the Brown Sugar Youth Festival, which brought holistic health writers and b-boys and hip-hop artists and graffiti artists together to talk about sustainability and green jobs development. Now it is turned into a curriculum that we work in the schools, not just in Denver, but nationwide. I also partner with Youth on Records, aka flowbots.org, to actually help them with their LEED certified green studio, which is, microphones are going to be powered by the sun. It's geothermal energy. It's the kind of things that we like to, emphasize on. I'm one of the original board members of a place called the Grow House, which is an interactive farmers market where we actually teach our workshops. And we harvest about like 10,000 pounds of microgreens a week. It's an aquaponics facility, and we do a lot of work showing children in low-income communities who are basically live in a food desert. You know, the nearest organic, market is 6 miles away. It's not in walking distance. And the freshest thing you can find in these communities are fast food and lemons out of liquor stores. So we show people more of the idea of why growing food is revolutionary, and the Food Not Lawns movement from a perspective of providing jobs for young people. And not only that, we give them a different perspective on why it's important to just feed your friends and feed your family healthy. And a lot of that is very important. We've done a lot of work, man, with organizations like I said, urban farming out of Detroit. We've done a lot of work with the organization called Bold Leaders, and we traveled all the way out to Uganda. I was actually in Uganda last year studying permaculture and indigenous agriculture on a level of agronomy, and how I can take that back to the hood and write a couple songs about it. I feel like hip-hop is a multi-billion-dollar industry that is, created a lot of gangsters, a lot of drug dealers, a lot of corporate pushers, and I felt, if we can write about alcohol and, fast food chains, I can write about kale and collard greens. Thank you. So one of the first projects that I put together was a cross collaboration on a past album I did called The Teacher's Lounge. I just started teaching, and I was frustrated with kids who, would always bring processed food and, soda pop in my class, and we're like, "Yo, you don't even know what's in that." And so I did a song called Wheatgrass with Diggable Planets and Dead Prez. And the song, turned out pretty viral. We got, write-ups in Grist magazine. Got some really cool collaboration projects with Green for All and the Keep It Fresh tour, which was a national tour with Drake and Wiz Khalifa to basically utilize, their national support to focus on green jobs development. That was a Green for All. Recently, this past April, I did a TED Talk. The TED Talk is titled Food Justice in Hip Hop. You can check that out on the TED website. It's really just focusing more on the curriculum and the work we do in the schools. Just a couple weeks ago, I presented at the Power Shift Conference, which is a national, conference that really talks about climate change and, putting a lens more on fracking and the effects of genetically modified food and tar sand and a lot of things like that. And I felt that it was very important to, include hip hop. The acronym of hip hop stands for Higher Inner Peace Helping Other People. That is the acronym. It's different. You have rap music, which is running the dozens. It's very much a culture, and we had people like Jasiri X and my brother Paradise X. Paradise from X Clan to sit on the panel to talk about what they're doing to utilize hip hop, and this is why I think it's important, because it's not just myself. Artists like Chuck D, who happens to be one of my mentors, Dad Prez, who happens to be one of my mentors, and I work with them to really put more of a lens on this music. And being a father and a midwife, and a vegan raw food chef, I do a lot of work making sure that young people have access to this information, and that's pretty much what it is. The first time kids take yoga classes is in my breakdancing class, and a lot of times, when the first time they taste fresh juice, they love French fries but never seen a potato grow, and I think that's the conversation that we need to have. And really getting this intergenerational dialogue moving, because one of the things that I suffer with is that the lack of elders wanting to participate in sustainability through music. So that's what we're doing, and we had a really great summer, and I want to show you a video, because one of the things that we've done over the past is work with young people to produce music videos, but this one was very powerful. I had about 80 kids write a response to the Hot Cheetos and Takis song. And we did a song called Brown Rice and Broccoli. And I'm going to show it to you just to kind of get a lens. You can check me out on Twitter, Etef, IETEF, or find me on, wherever you want to find me. You can Google me. There's some other videos like Let It Grow, Wheatgrass. This is what we're looking for, brown rice and broccoli. The reason I'm going to show this is because these are my students. This is what I do, and it's important. Might want to turn that up.
Brown rice and that broccoli, brown rice and that broccoli. I can't get enough of that brown rice and that broccoli. Pour that vegan cheese on that brown rice and that broccoli. Our favorite snack to eat is brown rice and that broccoli. Fresh food, eat food. Fresh food, eat food. Brown rice and that broccoli, brown rice and that broccoli. Our favorite snack to eat is brown rice and that broccoli.
Got some old pork skins, gonna make a snack when I mix that in with some old petroleum like what you get from the gas station. Sell that to the children, tell them eat it when they chillin'. But I bet that it will be cold when they find out they ate chitlin'. You won't believe what I just caught, cause this some hardcore food for thought. But it ain't fast food, even blood clots, cause this right here is good for your heart. Do you see what I'm trying to mean? Don't eat like a joker, eat like a king. Or if you female, eat like a queen. Superman, Wonder Woman, brown rice, broccoli.
Everybody talking about them hot Cheetos and Takis. I don't really like them screaming brown rice and that broccoli. Brown rice and that broccoli. Brown rice and that broccoli. They don't want to know what's in them hot Cheetos and Takis. If you know the song called Hot Cheetos and Takis, this the remix, we rapping brown rice and that broccoli. 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 I can't get enough of that brown rice and that broccoli. Pour that vegan cheese on that brown rice and that broccoli. Our favorite snack to eat is brown rice and that broccoli. Fresh food, eat food. Fresh food, eat food. Brown rice and that broccoli. Brown rice and that broccoli. Our favorite snack to eat is brown rice and that broccoli. You say Cheetos and Takis is your favorite snack. The sugar in it is a molecule away from crack. Traces yellow 5 cause chronic diarrhea. Do you want inflamed, swollen, or bleeding rectum rim? Oh, you want some Takis? Well, let's look at the ingredients. Artificial spices plus a couple different types of acids. Tell you about that MSG and why it's bad for you and me. Causing vomiting, hyperactivity. I mean, honestly, it's aggravating, but not speaking metaphorically. I'm talking literally. Add it on to 88. So what you wanna eat? So what you gonna eat? So what you wanna eat? Brown rice and that broccoli. Brown rice and that broccoli. I can't get enough of that brown rice and that broccoli. Pour that vegan cheese on that brown rice and that broccoli. Our favorite snack to eat is brown rice and that broccoli. Fresh food, eat food. Fresh food, eat food. Brown rice and that broccoli. Brown rice and that broccoli. Our favorite snack to eat is brown rice and that broccoli.
Let me flip the script though, let's go dip into the stove. Skipping with some food stamps and hop out with some greens at home. Fix those greens and now they're gold. If you want, they can't be sold. Just don't mix them up with them Takis and them hot Cheetos. Red dots before my eyes and that hue just intensifies. The irony is that I don't eat those and I still spit fire. You don't need that, you need this. Like a crackhead needs some resist. Our stomachs are impoverished. This stuff right here's oasis.
Yeah. So those kids. So those kids, they actually the video is so successful that we got contacted by Oprah, and in the October issue of Oprah magazine, on page 40, there's a full article on the workshop and what we're doing to educate young people with music and hip hop. And I hope you get a chance to check it out. Like I said, the album's called The Produce Section, The Harvest. It's an intergenerational environmental hip hop album. And it's, all educators. I hope that you really take it to, to a listen, because it's very important to interact with young people. Thank you so much. Peace.
so good. So a little bit about the Independent Music on Tour program, and Storm and I will sort of share a couple of minutes on that. The organization that I work for, Westaff, in 2009 did some research for the city of Denver around the economic impact of the independent music community. And instead of strictly doing a kind of creative economy labor market analysis, we also added a component that looked at a sort of a needs assessment approach to that community. What are they doing well? What aren't they doing well? And the long and the short of it is that one of the things that we identified was the unique kind of geographical challenges that musicians in the Rocky Mountain West have to touring. So if you're in Denver, it's 6 to 8 hours to get to the next market, and that's a pretty small to medium-sized market, as opposed to being on either of the coasts where you can hit a number of major metropolitan areas easily and quickly. And so bands are increasingly reliant on touring for their livelihood, as they always have been, but the digital music industry has really ramped that up. And so we saw bands in Denver kind of hit this this ceiling where they really couldn't progress. And some of the bands that we talked to that had been successful, like Devachka, started talking to us about how they developed touring routes in the West, that they did it over and over and over, and that's actually how they were able to grow their touring model. So we started working with the city of Denver and talking to our board about how can we develop a program that addresses this challenge that really supports independent music touring. So we are partners with the National Endowment for the Arts in providing grant money for presenting in visual arts, but none of that money prior to the I Am Tour program was going to independent musicians. And so we said, well, how do we take that model of public sector grant funding touring and apply it to the independent sector? And we came up with a program that connects a roster of artists to nonprofit arts presenters in the West. It provides grants to the nonprofit arts presenters to present independent musicians, and then we provide to the musicians what we call technical assistance. So for a tour, we provide resources for a booking manager for that tour, for public relations to do press for that tour, and merch support, so they have something to sell while they're on the road. And the idea is that if the bands can, through our program, have one really successful tour anchored by these 2 nonprofit presenting shows and build up the infrastructure they need to tour successfully, and we can repeat that, then we can address this particular challenge. So that's the kind of the long and short of the I Am Tour program. And because the grant money, there's an educational and community engagement component of this, so it's not just like, here's some money, get in the van and go. All of the tours and all of the presentations have to have an outreach and education component. We partnered with Storm at UCD to actually go out to these different communities and teach the seminars that he teaches at University of Colorado, Denver, in these particular communities on the digital music business, the future of the music business. So that's what I've asked him to talk about.
Yeah, well, first of all, it's lunchtime and I'm craving brown rice and broccoli.
That was
reason.
cruel to do to us at lunchtime.
Anyway, one of the fundamental, the ideas behind the concept of the university is engagement with the community. And I take that as my personal mission with the education I provide to my students by involving them in the community and with independent musicians. And so it segged well for me to become involved with the mission of I Am Tour, in that I could take the business side of music that I was teaching in the classroom out literally on the road. So I was very honored to be part of the program. In doing that, we went to really smaller markets, not San Francisco and LA when we chose the locations for these Denver artists to appear. And working with those nonprofit presenters, I would talk to them about what the independent musician communities would want to hear about in the seminars that I would conduct. So we would together fashion the curriculum so that I could go to the community, meet with the independent musicians, and in many cases, there weren't organizations that were providing these seminars and workshops. So So I think it came off very well, and it was interesting working with the artists too, as well, and getting to know them and seeing them on the road as well. There's plenty of stories about what I saw at their performances too. The communities coming together, for instance, to see Paper Bird in a Presbyterian church in Tacoma, and a great turnout, and you could just really grasp the idea of Denver independent music being on display, but also independent musicians coming together to support them and take part in the educational session.
Yeah, that's a great point. We really wanted to focus on the sort of the rural parts of the West, Wyoming, Montana, that typically musicians will just drive past, not realizing that there are multiple opportunities to play in this kind of network of nonprofit presenting organizations. So that was a critical component to the project.
Yeah, and we had a lot of response to the I Am Tour program. There were just over 50 applicants, and they were all great. So a national panel, not ourselves, chose the artists, and to see them get the chance. We had qualifying criteria for them to apply, including the idea that they were tour ready. And as Bryce mentioned, we offered them technical support in terms of PR to get these shows marketed well. So I think it's all come together very well in that sense.
And my favorite I Am Tour story is one of the bands on the roster is a kind of a loud indie punk band called the Photo Atlas, and the city of Scottsdale presented them, and they played an outdoor festival, and the mayor called to tell them to turn it down.
I was with them, and it was one of the proudest moments of their career.
Yeah, that was great. So we have a little bit more time, and I have some questions for the panelists, but I also know that we've sort of been listening to each other. Does anybody have a question that they want to ask of anyone else, or someone else, something else they want to elaborate on? And we'll have time for questions from the audience as well. Okay, so maybe I want to talk a little bit about what Dani and others call radical collaboration, and maybe you can start. I think one of the most impressive things about BandSwap in particular is that organization's ability to work with municipalities, like Chico, right, is one of them, and getting cities to see independent music and independent musicians as something that they should support is quite a challenge. So maybe you can talk about a little bit of your philosophy around collaboration, and then just maybe some specifics on how it's been, good or bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult process. My first career was in commercial development, and we spent a lot of time marketing to businesses what cultural assets were in each area that we were trying to get them to move to get them to be interested to move their employees to that area. And that kind of sparked some of the background in SpokesBUZZ of what are the cultural assets that need to be highlighted. In working with different cities, it's amazing. Every city has a different setup of whether there's an arts council or whether there's an economic development director, whether or not there are funds that are geared towards arts and culture support or not. So it was quite a challenge to work with 8 cities and figure out who the right people were to talk to get funding for their particular city. But ultimately, finding a champion in each one of those cities it is the key. And so once you find that champion who believes in promoting their emerging artists, you can find a way. So tons of obstacles, but I mean, I think that's my entrepreneurial spirit is obstacles are there, and you go over, around, under, or through, and keep working on it. And the cities that we worked with, which were Portland, Lafayette, Nashville, Asheville, Denver, Fort Collins, and one poor city, not Boise. Boise was the first year. Actually, Boise is a great example. The first year that we did this program, we did it completely grassroots, just through connections of venues and artists that we knew in the regions. The second year is when we went into the cities themselves to get official endorsement and funding from the cities to kind of legitimize the swapping program. Boise was a city that didn't have support municipally for that. They had great grassroots support. There's an organization called Listen Up Boise who helps run Tree Fort, which is a great festival there, and their frustrations were very high when their city didn't support bringing the program into their city. But so it's really about finding the right cities who are on the right track and working towards it. But any kind of partnership is very frustrating, and working with nonprofits, businesses, cities, and it's one of those things. It's like the industry, right? You can't give up. You just got to keep pushing on, and eventually, you know, we now are running into problems where we have too many partners and some exclusivity issues and that kind of thing. It's one thing we finally did. New Belgium is our official beer sponsor, and we had about 5 different breweries who wanted to partner, and finally New Belgium stepped up and said, we're exclusive. So it's not my nature to be exclusive, but in those situations, you know, we have to grow and learn and change, so.
Is it 5 minutes and then questions, or 5 minutes total? Okay, yeah. How do you guys feel about opening up to questions?
Yeah, we want to hear what you want to
So we have some time.
learn about.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you for all your great work. I just want to say that first of all. We appreciate you. My question is something that you brought up, Bryce, I think, is about how you do it, right? I mean, we love the work you do, but we want to hear about, like you were touching on, Danielle, working with arts councils. So my question is on sustainability and financially. Do you all set up 501c3 nonprofits? You know, how do you, I mean, it doesn't seem like you would charge your artists, so, but how do you create the funding to enable you to do these amazing programs?
That's a great question, and I think if there's time afterwards, feel free to grab one of us and we can talk specifics. My organization is very entrepreneurial. We do a lot of technology development and try to maintain the largest part of our budget as earned income. But everybody has kind of different strategies for doing that, and I'm sure that we'd be happy to share those different ones.
A lot of cause marketing, bringing in companies who want to be associated with an organization, and so getting them to sponsor. But we have a very strong artists. We don't earn money off the backs of artists. We're in this game to try and promote artists and have them be sustainable themselves. So it's definitely an important question.
And Rebecca and Lisa are both working musicians as well and working artists, and I don't think either of them sleep ever because they're always doing things. But I mean, it runs the gamut. But part of what we hope can happen is a critical conversation among sort of people doing similar work about, all right, what do you do? What do you do? How are you doing it? How can you sustain it? And we hope that this is a kind of an opening to that conversation. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Joel Pomerantz. I'm with the Songwriters Association of Washington and also help run the Electric Maid here in the DC area. And the one thing is, I know not every city can be Austin, but how can you encourage areas,
or should be,
you know, with that creates that marvelous ecosystem they have down there of both legal and grassroots support. But how can you at least get cities to stand out of the way of live performance? I mean, there's all sorts of different ranges of things, but here in the DC area, we're faced with incredible gentrification and real estate development pressures that have created a lot of higher rent and higher property prices for continuation of venues. So I'm just wondering if anybody has any thoughts on that. Thanks.
Rebecca, do you want to?
Well, one thing that comes to mind is that I was in Austin last week and I was at the Broken Spoke, which is an old venue. If you ever get a chance to go there, it's amazing. A lot of line dancing, a lot of great old ephemera. And on either side of it, under construction right now, 6-story condos. So you know there's issues coming with that, no matter how venerated that space is, which it is. They're not going to be able to have music and people coming out of there, really. So, like, that's something that's happening everywhere in the U.S., and it's something that's happening in Portland. And one of the things, you know, there's a lot of work, a lot of people doing really good work around housing equity. And so I think it's a national problem. And what we're just trying to do is really look at, with the group of musicians that I'm working with, we have a lot of dynamic, intelligent, creative, problem-solving ways of thinking, and you just look at what the resources are at hand and what needs to be done. you know, I think that there's a lot of huge 1% economic issues that are, I don't know, really difficult to overcome.
There's a national movement to have artists involved in city planning and cultural policy conversations, and I think musicians, because they're so critical to the landscape, have to be at the table. And I know, DJ, you work a lot with the public sector, the schools, the city.
I mean, it's very active, you know, seeing like, you know, the fact that I'm one of the partner artists with FlowBuzzZ.org, Youth on Records, also I've actually helped them organize the environmental piece. So definitely watching out for, you know, yeah, gentrification happens and graffiti art is not going to stop it. And I live in the 5 Points of Denver, so I know exactly what you're talking about, how things are changing in communities. I definitely feel that, you know, community gardens and making sure that young people who go to those schools are involved in the ideas of the, you know, the economic development of the community, but in more of a green sense. Because once those jobs are provided in the community, people don't have to outsource. They don't have to, you know, go anywhere for their food. They don't have to go anywhere for their music. Everything will be right there. And I think that's pretty much what all cities need.
I want to thank you as a Westerner. I grew up in Flagstaff, Arizona, which is the bottom end of the Rocky Mountains. And boy, the issues of touring are just, I was also a musician for a while, and just getting out on the road, you know, issues like snow, which, you know, can delay what was a 3-hour trip into now 6 hours. So stringing together all those things, I really want to commend you. One point, and then I have a quick question because the question can be easily answered. The thing that's so essential to what you're doing out west and to what you're doing in other areas, to what all these local communities are doing is, I think music, more so than any other scene, brings a narrative to a city. It brings a narrative and a sense of pride of, we have this musician, we have this movement, that I'm from Norfolk right now, I live there, and if you ask them, like, what's your local cuisine, what's your local art scene, they can't answer that. That's a huge problem for that community. Just saying, you know, what would you take somebody to see or listen to? They can't collectively answer that quite yet. And if you can solve that problem for a city and connect with a local politician, convince them of the power of that narrative. And that's the question I actually have for you, is to, how did you seek out those local politicians, those local investors, those people that we're going to bring, and said, you know, and convince them of that, because I'm actually having problems doing exactly that.
Well, thanks for your question. We're actually doing an event in Denver soon, the Denver Music Summit, and we'll have a research and policy conversation where we've invited people locally who can make a difference at the policy level, at the public office level, and we're taking them on a kind of a tour of their own city and saying, look, here are neighborhoods, here are groups, here are businesses that are all connected to independent music. Because I think you're right, it often tends to lend a voice to the city, but I think there's a lack of reciprocity from the public sector back to the independent music community. And so pointing that out and making it real, explicit, that these are the people that, you know, are making your place so vibrant. And next, here's how you can support them, because I think that's the missing piece. If you just go, hey, music is great, look at all of this stuff, and you don't have an ask, you don't have a discrete, it's health insurance, it's zoning, it's grants, it's something, then all you've been is a dog and pony show. And I think we just got the inside. Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much to that panel. That was fantastic. So our next speaker is coming up right now. So I'll ask the panelists to clear the stage. So our next speaker is Anton Gunn, who's the Director of External Affairs for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, which is a critical component to the rollout of the Affordable Care Act. We invited Mr. Gunn here today because we know, as musicians and advocates, that health insurance is a critical issue for musicians, and through FMC's own surveys, we've discovered that musicians are chronically uninsured, as are many artists in the creative fields. We released a survey about 10 days ago, which was the result of a survey which we did in July and August, which was the third time we've surveyed musicians, but we expanded our survey pool to include all sorts of artists based in the US. And we found that 43% of respondents did not currently have health insurance. Of those who did have insurance, 39% were paying for a private individual plan, which is vastly more than the American public, most of whom rely on employer-based insurance. For those who weren't insured, 88% said it's because they can't afford it. And we know that there are many components of the Affordable Care Act are trying to tackle some of these fundamental issues about affordability and access to insurance. And so we're so pleased to have Mr. Gunn here to speak about health insurance and artists. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. It's a pleasure for me to be here at this event today. As you can imagine, we have lots of stuff happening right now at the department, but I'm happy to take a few minutes of my time away to be here, a part of this, for several reasons. One is that I'm incredibly passionate about access to affordable health coverage for all Americans and the work that we do at the Department of Health and Human Services. But I have a personal interest as it relates to health care and as it relates to artists, particularly in the music industry. In order to explain how that makes sense, I'm going to tell you a little bit about who I am, because I think it's important to have context of who people are when they speak to you, because it actually helps to inform perspective that they come from. I'm originally from Hampton Roads, Virginia. I grew up in Virginia Beach, Virginia. That is my hometown, where my father was raised, my mother was raised. My grandparents met there and got married in the shipyard in the 1940s. As a part of growing up in Hampton Roads, I was fortunate enough at a very young age to become engaged and married to a culture and a music that began in the 1970s and really came to the prime spot of life when I was an adolescent, and that is hip hop. I am hip hop. That's how I introduce myself to most audiences. Hip hop is who I am. Healthcare is what I do, is how I like to say. And there's a particular connection with hip hop in the area that I grew up in Virginia Beach. I went to high school with one half of the Neptunes. Chad Hugo went to high school with me. That work of hip hop started when Teddy Riley left New York City and came to Virginia Beach and built a studio. And everybody that I knew was engaged in the music culture in some way, shape, or form. So whether it's Eclipse, whether it's Neptunes, whether it's Timberland Magoo, and I went to middle school with Magoo at Deep Creek Junior High School, I was around the industry a lot. I knew lots of people who were aspiring DJs and rappers and beat makers and everything else, and I too dabbled in that culture. Yes, I've spent my money on studio time trying to get my demo together, because I was going to mail it off to every record company in New York City, and I was going to get a deal, and me and my friend were going to make it big in the rap industry. But something else happened to me during that same time, is that I grew 5 inches in the summer and became 6'5" and 225 pounds and could catch a football and run like a deer. So I got a full scholarship and went to the University of South Carolina to play football. And that fundamentally changed the direction of my professional life. But what never escaped me, what never got away from me, were my friends, my colleagues, and my cohort, and my love for hip-hop music and the culture around that. So I come at this from a very passionate place of knowing friends who, for years, traveled around the Southeast, traveled around the East Coast, went to the West Coast, trying to get that big start of theirs, trying to get that big break, performing and opening at a concert that's supposed to have 10,000 people in it, but the lights are still on and it's still daylight outside, and they're performing in front of 200 that hadn't gotten there yet because they're the pre-show. So I know somewhat about the artist world and what artists deal with in terms of trying to passionately build their career in a way that gives them the opportunity to fulfill their goals and dreams, to make creative, culturally significant, musically significant, and at the end, financially significant, hopefully, for some artists, the music that they believe in and that they love. But I also know the struggles of being an artist and going through that process. I can't tell you the number of friends who I've had that may have suffered from some level of pre-existing condition, whether they were born with an illness or a disease that many times kept them from being able to fully create at the highest level in their mind and their body and their spirit because they were not healthy. I've had friends that have come across injuries as it relates to being engaged in the music industry. Late night studio hours, fights over who gets to use what beat and who gets to go first on what verse. And then the after party after you have a successful show and something happens and somebody gets hurt. We never plan for bad things to happen, but sometimes bad things do happen. And when that happens, the people who suffer from it the greatest are the people that have no access to health insurance coverage. They can't get treatment for their pre-existing condition. They may avoid going to the doctor to get their throat looked at, even though they're a singer or they're an artist of some sort, because they don't have health insurance coverage. Or they can't afford to keep themselves healthy, whether it's routine screenings. Many of these things are absent from the lives of many artists because health insurance has been out of reach for them for a couple of reasons. One, because of affordability, and two, because they may have had a pre-existing condition or not have had a job that provided them health coverage as they pursued their goals and dreams. This has gone on for decades. Everyone in this room probably knows an artist who for decades has wanted health insurance coverage and couldn't afford coverage in the private market or wasn't involved in the union in order to be able to get health insurance coverage. And this has been a struggle and a difficulty for so many people. That is why I'm excited to be here to talk a little bit about the Affordable Care Act and the role that it can play to fundamentally transform the success of artists and being able to pursue their craft, their goals, and their dreams with the safety and security of knowing that if something bad happened, they're covered. If they need to get treatment, they're covered. If they need to address that pre-existing condition, they're covered. I cannot underscore and stress how I believe that health insurance coverage can have a fundamental difference in the quality and the amount of good artistic, cultural music that can be given to our society when we have strong, healthy artists. I want to talk about 3 artists in particular who their stories, in particular for me, just speak loudly to what it means to not have coverage. The first is a hip-hop artist, an MC named Poetic, who was a part of a group called Gravediggers, where the RZA was involved with it, RZA from Wu-Tang Clan, who died of a massive heart attack at a very young age. Whether he had health insurance coverage, who knows? But to lose people at a young age is a challenge to all of us. Then you have another artist. Many people know this artist, Phife Dawg, a member of a tribe called Quest, a multi-million-dollar record-producing group who traveled around the world, and Phife missed plenty of studio time because he suffered from type 1 diabetes and wasn't always on treatment that he needed. And being a diabetic, you can't be without treatment. Phife recently had a kidney transplant and is now doing a lot better and in a lot good health, but without having access to health insurance coverage, could have cost him his life, most definitely cost him productivity in his music career. And the last one, and the one that is most profound to me, is that there are very few what I like to call pinnacle hip-hop music producers. Everybody knows Dr. Dre, everybody knows DJ Premier, everybody knows Pharrell and many others, but Jay Dilla is one of the greatest of all time, whose life was cut short because he lost his battle with lupus by going into cardiac arrest. That shows, and anybody that knows Jay Dilla's music and knows his music collection and the artists that he's produced for and the things that he's done, know that that is a great loss to music and the music industry not having him with us. That speaks volumes to the importance of having health insurance coverage and being able to get treatment when you need it, to be able to manage chronic conditions when you need it. I have a coworker who suffers from lupus and had a conversation early today, and my coworker said, I could not imagine living without health insurance coverage. That just speaks clearly to us of why this is important. So now to get to the summary, that the Affordable Care Act primarily, I don't know what you've heard, not even going to try to measure my words about what you heard, but I'll just tell you, speak realistically about what the Affordable Care Act is. The Affordable Care Act does so many things as it relates to health coverage. In the early years, the Affordable Care Act began to put new rules in place around how insurance operated for people that had coverage. It basically said to insurance companies that you can no longer violate a rule that is in place called the 80-20 rule. And the 80-20 rule says that if you pay for health insurance coverage, so right now if you have coverage, if you spend money on health insurance coverage, that 80% of every dollar that you pay on health insurance coverage should come back to you in coverage and the quality of services that you receive from your health insurance product. And only 20% is allowed to be spent on what's considered overhead costs. So that's marketing, executive compensation, any other administrative costs. 80% has to go to care, and 20% is allowed to be spent in overhead costs. And if any insurance plan violates that 80-20 rule, which is that they spend more than 20% on overhead costs, they have to rebate that amount that they overspent back to consumers in a form of a check. They have to send a check, or they can provide better services. And so in 2012, $1.1 billion went back into the American economy from insurance companies who violated the 80-20 rule. In 2013, it was about $500 million that went back to consumers in savings. Why was it less? Because more insurance plans started to comply with the 80-20 rule, which is providing you a better quality of product and making the administrative costs at 20% or lower. So that was a big benefit for so many people. For seniors who are in the Medicare prescription drug program, they were receiving savings on their costs. If they were in the middle of their donut hole, saved an average of $700 in 2011 on their prescription drug costs because of the Affordable Care Act. So it put a lot of things in place at the early on. It said to children under the age of 26 that you can stay on your parents' health insurance plan and receive coverage that way. So we know 3 million young adults got health insurance coverage through that provision that would have otherwise not had it not been for the Affordable Care Act. These are all the things that the Affordable Care Act did early on. But the most important thing is what the Affordable Care Act is doing right now, which is saying to every American, no matter who you are, no matter where you live, that no insurance company in America can discriminate against you because you have pre-existing conditions. They can no longer charge you more for being a woman on a health insurance plan. So if you're one of the 43 million Americans or many others who have pre-existing conditions, reportedly have pre-existing conditions, that could have been used as an excuse to keep an insurance company from giving you a health insurance plan if you wanted to purchase one. They can't do that anymore. They cannot do that. Matter of fact, when applying for coverage under the Affordable Care Act through the insurance marketplace, they can't even ask you what your pre-existing conditions are. So you don't have to talk about your diabetes. You don't have to talk about your lupus. You don't have to talk about your high blood pressure or any of your pre-existing conditions that you may have. You're actually able to get coverage, okay? And let me talk about what this coverage is that all Americans now have access to. I'm not talking about what I had at one point in time in my life, which is what I call cut rate insurance, which is I had an insurance card in my pocket and thought I was covered, but every time I went to use it, it didn't cover anything that I needed it to cover. It didn't cover my wife's maternity when she was pregnant with my daughter in 2004. It didn't cover my prescription drug that I needed for my acid reflux. It didn't cover certain service, didn't cover her annual exam, my wife's annual exam. So I had an insurance card, and I was paying a pretty penny for it every single month, but it didn't cover anything that I needed it to cover. So I thought I was insured. Maybe I was insured when I went into cardiac arrest. If I had a car accident or something majorly bad happened to me, I might have been covered. But for those essential health benefits that people use when they use their health insurance coverage, not all plans before had that in them. But now, thanks to the Affordable Care Act, any plan that a consumer rolls in 2014 must have those essential health benefits. It must cover outpatient services. So if you need outpatient surgery, it's covered. Hospitalization is covered. Maternity care is covered. Prescription drugs are covered. Rehabilitation services and habilitation services. These are all essential health benefits. And one essential health benefit that's really important that was many times not covered by other health insurance plans is access to mental health and substance abuse services, recovery services. So being able to get treatment for drug addiction, alcohol addiction, or even depression, simple things like depression, insurance plans now must cover that in 2014. That's an important part of the Affordable Care Act. It's an important part of all health insurance products going forward. And this will make a great difference to so many people's lives, particularly who are trying to expand and explore their own craft, that they know, again, if you're not healthy in your mind, if you're not healthy in your body, and to some degree, if you're not healthy in your spirit, can you really produce the quality of work that you want to produce in any field, but especially in music? That's an important piece of what the Affordable Care Act provides. And so I lastly want to share with everyone, I know don't want to skip over the 800-pound elephant in the room, and that is the challenges that we've had with our web portal, healthcare.gov, where you can go and get information about the marketplace and actually enroll in coverage. We have had some challenges, some glitches, and some problems with the website. But I'm here to tell you that the website is fixable. It will be fixed, and we have people who are working 24/7, 7 days a week to solve the challenges with the website. We have a tech team that's in place, a new leadership team in place who are managing how we improve the website so the user experience from a consumer standpoint is easy and significant for people to use, and we think it'll be working for most people by the end of November. But I don't want to dwell on the website, because dwelling on the website is like a music artist dwelling on how many of their records are going to be sold at Sam Goody's record store across town. That is not the only way that you get your music product out, is by relying on a record store. You as an artist do lots of other things to get the message out about your product, what you're providing in terms of musical connection for people. And we're doing the same thing at HHS. Healthcare.gov is not the only way that you can enroll in coverage. There are actually 4 ways that people are able to enroll in coverage, and the healthcare.gov web portal is one of them. A second way people can enroll in coverage is over the phone, that we actually have a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week call center that operates in 150 different languages. So you can call at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, or you can call at 3 o'clock in the morning when you finish your studio time and find out about how you can get enrolled in affordable health insurance coverage. And the wait time to answer that phone in that call center is less than a minute. It's about 90 seconds most times, so it's less than 2 minutes, about 90 seconds. But it's been a lot faster than that because we have a very robust call center and increased capacity on it to be able to help people to enroll in coverage over the phone. And what I like to tell any audience that I talk to is this phone number, to make sure that you save it in your phone, you write it in your notebook, you give it to your friends. If you're talking to somebody that you know that doesn't have affordable health insurance coverage, or maybe they don't even understand what health insurance is, and you don't want to sit there and explain it to them, we have a call center that has the robust capacity to do that. That phone number is 1-800-318-2596. I will repeat, 1-800-318-2596. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in 150 different languages. So if you happen to be a guitar artist from the Mississippi Delta, or maybe you from a lower portion of Louisiana between New Orleans and Lafayette, and you speak a special brand of Creole, there's somebody at that call center will be able to help you to understand what your health insurance options are and how you can enroll in coverage. That's the second way people can enroll in coverage. The third way that people can enroll in coverage is that you don't have to do it online or do it over the phone. You can actually do it in person. We have navigators and assistance personnel that are in the 50 states all across the country that are working on the ground to work face-to-face with people to help them to understand what their health insurance options are and help them to enroll in coverage. And we call these folks a wide variety of names. Some of them are navigators, some of them are at community health centers, and many community health centers are where I know a lot of artists went and got primary care. When they didn't have health insurance coverage, a community health center would charge them on a sliding fee scale. If they're able to need and get treatment, they could go right to a community health center. Well, we've empowered community health centers with resources to have trained people on staff that can help people to enroll in coverage. They know who the uninsured are, and the uninsured have been coming through their doors. They now are helping people on the ground to enroll in coverage. If you want to find out who the local help are in your zip code in the community in which you live, you can go to healthcare.gov. Actually, you can go to localhelp.healthcare.gov, and that's a local help tool that'll pull up. You can put in an address and a zip code, and it'll give you the names and the locations and the hours of the organizations right near you that can help people enroll in coverage face-to-face. So that's the third way. And then the fourth way is real simple. It's kind of old school, if you will, which is you can go to healthcare.gov and download the application, a PDF application, fill it out, and mail it in. That is the fourth way that people can enroll in coverage: by paper, in person, over the phone, and healthcare.gov. And I don't want to sit here and let everybody think that healthcare.gov is not working. The website is working. There are people who are getting through and enrolling in coverage, but it's not working as efficiently as we want it to. As the president said that it should be working, and so we're working around the clock to make sure that we get that done. So the big note is there are 4 ways to enroll in coverage. This can be a new day for many people who care about music, who care about musicians, who have them in their families, who are close to them, who've spent lots of time helping and supporting artists in their craft. One of my biggest mentors in my professional life is a musician. His name is Cy Khan. He's been a musician for a long time, and Cy and I have had lots of long conversations as he's aged about the importance of healthcare, and thank God he has some. So I know that this is an important thing to so many people across the country, but I think it can be particularly important and particularly impactful in the lives of musicians and the lives of artists of all types everywhere, to be able to have quality, affordable health insurance coverage that not only meets your needs, but the last thing I'll tell you about, that fits in your budget. Because affordability is a big, important piece for people to understand, that the Affordable Care Act also makes health care more affordable. One, it does that by creating competition in the marketplace. So when you go to healthcare.gov or over the phone, or once you fill out the paper application and you get information back, you will be selecting from health plans that are competing against other health plans for your business. This is where you have the bargaining power as a shopper to decide where you want to spend your money and how you want to spend your money. That's an important piece of the marketplace. And as a part of shopping, you also may qualify for financial assistance to help you to be able to afford insurance. These are called tax credits, advanced tax credits, to help people to pay for insurance. And you qualify for these tax credits based upon your income. And if you're like many of the artists that I know, before they get that record deal, they're making it show by show, which is they go from one town to one town, and what they perform that night is what they get paid. And many times it adds up to enough to just get you to the next town or get you to the next event, but doesn't add up enough to pay for health insurance for yourself or for your family. That is where the advanced premium tax credits come in. If your income as a single individual with no children is under $46,000 a year, you may qualify for subsidy to help you to pay for health insurance. If you have a family, if you're a family of 4, you can earn up to $95,000 a year and will qualify for subsidy to help you to afford health insurance. That is what the law provides, of those subsidies. And we are seeing how this works. There are 6 in 10 young adults. We did a study a few weeks ago that said 6 in 10 young adults may pay less than $100 a month for health insurance when you count their subsidy, okay? That's big. That's less than what people pay for their smartphone bill every single month. So this is what health insurance coverage can mean for so many people. And that's why I wanted to take some time to be here with you today, because I think the Affordable Care Act is a tremendous support to so many people and a tremendous opportunity for many musicians to be able to have their quality, affordable health insurance coverage that meets their needs and fits their budget, but gives them the opportunity to advance their dreams and goals of creating great cultural music for their audiences, for their fans, and those that they work with and support. And so the last thing I want to mention, if you're an artist in here who is uninsured, who's looking for the opportunity to have health insurance coverage, looking for the opportunity to get enrolled in coverage, we want to know your story at HHS. We're actually really trying to talk to people who want coverage, who are looking for coverage. Maybe you have a pre-existing condition, maybe you don't. Maybe you just want health insurance coverage and haven't been able to get it in the private market before. We want to be able to talk about that. So we have staff members here who are working to collect stories of individuals. We'd love to get you on tape or video, and there she is helping us out with that. I want to say thank you all for your time and your attention, and I'm happy to take a couple questions, but I don't want to prolong the hour too long. So with that, thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, and you have wonderful taste in music. I just
Thank
have
you.
to say that.
Thank you.
Rest in peace, Dilla. My just question, because I haven't been able to, I really haven't researched it truthfully,
Sure.
but I know that there's a penalty for failing to enroll, and I just wanted to know how that works. Is there a specific number? Where the information comes from?
That's a great question. So the law provides that all Americans are supposed to have health insurance coverage in 2014. So by 2014, everybody should have a health insurance coverage. Now, there are a few exemptions of people who won't have to have health insurance coverage, and these are people who qualify and file for a hardship exemption. So maybe you don't want health insurance coverage for religious reasons, or if you're a member of a federally recognized tribe, you don't have to have health insurance coverage. But for the vast majority of Americans, you have to be enrolled in a health plan by March 31st, 2014. So basically, you have from now until March 31st, 2014 to enroll in a health insurance plan. And how the penalty works is that at the end of March is which ends the open enrollment period. So you don't have the ability to enroll into a plan after March 31st unless you have some kind of what's called a life event. So maybe you're covered now under a job, but you lose your job in June, and so you need health insurance coverage. You will be allowed to enroll. But everybody else, they won't get that special exemption. They should have coverage by the 31st. So when you do your taxes at the end of the year, really in January of 2015, is when you have to show proof of health insurance. And if you don't have proof of health insurance, you have to pay the penalty for being uninsured. It's called a shared responsibility penalty, which is $95 or 1% of your income, whichever is greater. That is a shared responsibility penalty. And if you have children in your household who are uninsured, the penalty for every child that's uninsured is $47.50 in year one. So that's a shared responsibility penalty. I'll take one more. Or I'll take both of these. Since you're here, I'll take both of them.
My question is, it's a little confusing when I went on the site and saw the different things on what states accepted the Medicaid expansion and what's not. And so, like, I live in Pennsylvania.
Yes.
So you're talking about, the prices and the tax credit and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, if I'm enrolling, if I go in, is this from a private insurer in my own state that I have to deal with? And then so if it's expensive, let's say it's like $200 something a month and I can't afford that, is that where that tax credit comes in to help me pay that private insurer? Or is this something, a completely different concept?
You got it almost 100% right. So how this works is when you go to healthcare.gov, you'll pick your state first of all. So you have to, insurance is locally managed generally by states, and so states regulate insurance differently. So you pick your state, and then you have to apply. So you have to fill out an application to apply to see what you're eligible for. Because some people that apply may be eligible for free health insurance in the Medicaid program, whether your state expanded or not, because there are some people right now who are eligible for Medicaid and never knew that they were eligible. And you'll find it out by going through the application process. At that same process that you apply for Medicaid, you'll also be screened to see if you're income eligible for the tax credits. And so you'll be told at the end of your application how much of a tax credit that you qualify for the year. So some people in the individual market are qualifying for $5,500 a year in tax credits, okay? And so when you pick your plan, let's say the plan is, $200 a month, you could qualify for a tax credit that could equal $150 a month. And so you pick that plan and you say, I want to buy this plan, and your credit is $150. So that means your portion to pay every 30 days is $50 a month, or maybe you want to pay it quarterly or pay the whole year. It depends on the insurance plan. They'll make that decision. But that credit is automatically sent directly to the insurance company on your behalf. So it doesn't come to you. Right. It goes right to the insurance company. You just have to pay your portion of the premium.
So just a quick follow-up of that. So if it's the whole year or whatever, and you actually still sign up via the website, and simultaneously it'll tell you, hey, pay your portion, and then you guys.
Yeah, so your insurance company, so when you pick a plan online, when you click enroll into a plan, and you enroll into a plan, that insurance plan will send you a message and they say, we have a way for you to pay online, or maybe you need to mail a check, or maybe you need to give us an account number of some sort. They'll basically give you what their way they accept payment. Okay. And then they'll ask you to make that payment by December 15th in order for your coverage to be effective beginning January 1. Okay. So you make the payment, whatever that amount, if it's $50, and then the IRS will send that other $150 right to the insurance plan on your behalf. Okay. So that's the way it works. Okay. Thank you. Last question here.
This is a very quick question, and I also just want to thank you for being here because I definitely learned a lot. I just wanted to know about how the Affordable Health Care Act can help people personalize their health care plans. I'm a singer, and so I go to annual checkups to my otolaryngologist. Most people don't do that, right? My health care insurance at the moment won't cover that. Mm-hmm. And so I was just wondering, is there anything in the Affordable Care Act that helps people to personalize and specialize what they need? Right.
That's a great question. So simply speaking, all plans will come with a set of essential health benefits, and this is what the vast majority of all people use in health insurance regularly. So hospitalization, maternity care, prescription drugs, et cetera. But there are plans in the marketplace that cover more robust services like the ones that you talked about. And they're in the marketplace, and what you have to do is when you're comparison shopping, it's kind of like anything else. If you were buying a car, some people want heated leather seats in their car, but a lot of other people don't need heated leather seats because they live in Florida, and there's no reason why they would want to heat up any kind of seat in the car because it's 90 degrees outside. But for you, it may be very important. So what you have to do is you look at the sticker on that car to see what's included in that. And so when shopping for a plan, those are the same things that you look for in a plan. So you will have the ability to be able to contact that plan and say, hey, I have this special service, this provider provides these services for me. I want to make sure this plan covers it before I purchase it. You'll be able to answer that question. But we don't tell insurers what to put in their plan. We set the floor. So there's a minimum level of services that all insurance plans have to cover, but there are plans that cover a lot more stuff, and they're in various metal levels. So you got bronze plans, you got silver plans, you got gold plans, and you got platinum plans. And I don't know why they found the record insignia to go platinum plans, but I'm happy that they did, because some people may want a platinum plan that would cover a larger, more robust services, no co-pays, none of those kind of things. And so you just have to look at each plan to see that. But I don't know if you can necessarily customize and pick these individual services. Some insurers may get to that point, but right now the plans are more robust on a scale going up.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
All right, it's lunchtime. So thank you to all our panelists and our speakers this morning. And as you head off to lunch, we want to remind everyone of a few things. During lunch hour, there's a policy briefing in the networking space across the little walkway there, where Future Music Coalition is actually going to present a bit more from our artist health insurance survey. So you'll find out a bit more about that. Free Press will be there to talk about some media policy issues, and Prometheus Radio Project is going to talk about low-power FM rollout. And the breakouts start again at 2 o'clock. There's one in here and 2 over in the Student Center. And although we're not quite done with our time together, please take a moment to fill out an evaluation form sometime today. So we'll see you back here at 2 o'clock for more programming, and thank you again for your attention.